agree with Homan that this is something that is because of Democrats, or is this a single guy who decided to do something that was illegal?
Of course I agree with Homan, and it's not a single guy. This is another in a long string of attacks on ICE personnel, ICE facilities. There's been a massive spike in violence against ICE agents, really against all law enforcement, specifically federal law enforcement out there. So I think Mr. Homan is absolutely correct.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome. The mainstream media will tell you a different story. Statistically, though, the left is more violent. The left also loves instigating violence for the hatred of Trump. According to Homeland Security's own published numbers, under Joe Biden, 19 ICE officers were assaulted in a 10-month stretch, 238 in the same 10 months under Donald Trump. That's almost 12 times. 2 vehicles used as weapons against him, then 66 under Trump. Tonight, Sarah Sidner, with a straight face, asks Scott Jennings down at the CNN table whether the left has anything to do with it. Let's have a watch.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Sidner, in for Ms. Abby Phillip. Tonight, a 43-year-old Army veteran is in custody, accused of throwing an incendiary device at a federal building that houses offices for Immigration and Customs Enforcement in New York City. Now, you can see the moment that authorities say Andrew Arabaka threw the gasoline near the building. You see him throwing it there before lighting it on fire. Officials say the suspect had 2 axes, a hammer, a machete, and 3 knives, and a sign that read, quote, "ICE off our streets." The FBI warned he, quote, "came armed with bad intentions." The White House board czar refused to comment on the investigation as it is ongoing, telling reporters he would let the investigation play out. But he did talk about who he thinks is partly to blame anyway, naming leftist politics for the current climate surrounding immigration enforcement.
What happened in front of the federal building is another example of attacking ICE. And I'm sure if you ask that person why he did it, he can repeat the talking points I just said that you hear from Democratic members of Congress, the Democratic mayors and governors who simply want ICE to go away. And as they keep attacking and miscommunicating what ICE does every day, calling them Nazis and comparing ICE to the Nazi regime, are you kidding me? And for any member of Congress to keep attacking ICE and calling them fascists and Nazis, I said it 1,000 times. If they're a Nazi for enforcing the law, what's that make them? They wrote the law.
Now, before we open it up to the table here, we invite you at home to join this debate. Head to cnn.com/Abby and weigh in. We'll get to some of your comments throughout the show. Scott, I'm going to start with you. Words do matter, so do actions, right? I think we've talked about this before with, Republicans saying things, Democrats saying things, and then there's the actions of ICE as well. When you look at this, do you agree with Homan that this is something that is because of Democrats, or is this a single guy who decided to do something that was illegal?
Of course I agree with Homan, and it's not a single guy. This is another in a long string of attacks on ICE personnel, ICE facilities. There's been a massive spike in violence against ICE agents, really against all law enforcement, specifically federal law enforcement out there. So I think Mr. Homan is absolutely correct. And I think you've got members of Congress, the mayor of New York City, governors, as Homan said, all sorts of people out there who are using language that would lead someone to go do these kinds of things. It's despicable. These people are effectively political vigilantes. They've been programmed by the left to go out and take matters into their own hands. And it ought to be stopped right now. I noticed Mamdani today, put out a statement saying, this is bad, we're going to cooperate. This is the same guy who has said some of the worst things about ICE, who says he wants to defund the police and makes a lot of anti-law enforcement rhetoric a staple of his political movement. I don't know how you can reconcile those positions, and I don't suppose they'll even try, but I think Homan's right.
But is it possible that it is the actions of ICE that have people talking like this, not just getting messaging from the Democrats, but seeing what's happening in their communities?
The left always likes to erase the agency. They always want to blame an entity, a group of people, or an institution for an individual's behavior.
So if you believe that a government agency is doing something that you don't like, and your choices are A, cast a vote, B, use your words, or C, go set off an incendiary device at the federal building in New York City and you pick C, there is no justification for this. There's no rationalization of it, and it's patently ridiculous if that is what anybody's going to argue tonight.
Keith, how do you see it?
Let's take Scott's scenario. If you believe a government agency is doing something wrong, do you use your vote, do you use your words, or do you resort to violence? In one very clear example, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, implicitly encouraged people to resort to violence. That was the January 6th insurrection. He didn't tell people your vote was enough. The 80-something lawsuits that we filed were enough. He didn't tell people that we're just going to settle this in sort of a peaceful way. He actually encouraged people to walk from the ellipse to the Capitol, not knowing what might happen, and knowing that these people were armed and violent. This guy, Donald Trump, is responsible for some of the worst, most incendiary, most politically violent rhetoric in our country. So I don't accept this statement from Scott at all. Violence, political violence, is wrong, whether it's left or right. The problem is, I don't know any president on the Democratic side in my lifetime who's ever encouraged political violence. In fact, I don't know any Republican president in my lifetime who's ever encouraged political violence until Donald Trump. We have crossed the proverbial standard here. We've passed the point of no return with Donald Trump. And if we don't call him out for his responsible activities in encouraging this, we're responsible as well.
Do you have any comment on the actual news story?
Keith Boykin does this all the time. It's called a scope shift. Scott Jennings asked him a very specific question, and yet Keith answers with a decade because he knows he can't win on this particular incident with the Democratic guy.
Just said I condemn political violence in all situations. What you did is you took this situation and you agreed with Tom Holman's talking point that somehow this is a Democratic case. But the reality is the studies have shown that in the past decade or so, 112 of the past right-wing, of the 112 right-wing murders have taken place. Only 13 have taken place from the left.
So you don't have any comment on this?
No, I just told. What else is there to say except I condemn it, Scott? You want me to say more than that?
Yeah.
What else? You don't say. Hey, you haven't said yet. What did you say about Donald Trump and the January 6th insurrection? The fact that he pardons people. The fact that he actually tried to create a $1.8 billion fund to support those people.
I'm long on the record about political violence.
How about condemning?
What about
Tom Holman makes a very good point that the rhetoric of the left against ICE has been outrageous, and it does foment this kind of violence. Look, there's nobody at this table who's more pro-immigration than I am. Immigrants are great for our country. They have to come in the right way. Trump won the election in no small part because people were sick of millions of illegal immigrants coming into the country. If you're going to come in, you have to come in the right way. If you don't like the law, change it. But I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, the police are terrible, or ICE is dangerous. All the ICE people, now there are some bad actors in ICE, I guarantee, I'll agree with that. But all they're doing is enforcing the law, for goodness sakes. And to be calling them villains and demonizing like this is dangerous.
You have 38 Democratic senators who just sent a letter saying that they want ICE to enforce the law. They want them to take off their masks. They want them to actually do their jobs with accountability, to use warrants when they go into places where they need them, to actually identify themselves when they are engaging their behavior. We don't have an ICE agency that is following the rules of law.
Would you want to be an ICE agent in this kind of environment right now?
Police officers all across the country have been doing this job for decades, for centuries, and they don't mask themselves when they go do their jobs, unlike ICE.
These people feel like
Are they masking themselves because of events like what happened today? Isn't that exactly why we're in this mess to begin with?
Let me just speak to something that we've been talking about, which is, Holman going after the left and saying, look, words matter. And I think that we all agree that words do matter. Like, in the end, words do matter. But there have been words, as you brought up, Keith, from the president, and I just want to go over a few of them just to give this some balance, because the president has shared video of supporters saying the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat. The New York Times reported that Trump calling Dems video to service members seditious behavior or punishable by death. Trump blasting prosecutors he appointed for not giving Hunter Biden a death sentence. I mean, there's a lot of rhetoric that has been used by the president that is incendiary at the very least. So how do you explain that when you have someone going, hey, stop this, but only talking about the left and not saying, hey, let's all stop this?
First of all, I want to point out, I don't think he's only talking about the left. I think he's...
Well, he said he blamed the left.
Donald Trump has said a lot over the last 10 years. Tonight we're talking about the left, but Donald Trump has also asked people to respect police officers and to respect authority and to respect ICE agents who are risking it all. Truly, at this point in time, based on what happened today, we know that they're risking their lives to get this job done. They were respected up until Donald Trump became president. Wanting immigration enforcement was a normal, moderate viewpoint until Donald Trump became president. We all became racist all of a sudden. So the problem is not that Donald Trump came in and did something different. The problem is that after Donald Trump ran, everything that we knew to be basic decency, basic common sense American policy went out the window because everyone hated Donald Trump so much and we all became racist for wanting proper immigration policy. So I think the president has to be separated from what happened today. And if you want to sit here and talk about January 6th, which I think we're going to do on the show to the end of time, we should also be able to say, hey, when Democrats actually run on the same message that this man today was holding, get ICE off of our streets, no more ICE, abolish ICE, resist ICE, this is going to continue to happen.
Christine, what do you see?
Elizabeth Pico has a point. I don't know why we're even discussing Trump for this particular incident. That's a really good point.
People can take a position that ICE should be abolished. That you may disagree with it, but it is not a insane policy position. There are a lot of people who feel that that is the right thing. And today we saw 38 senators ask for reforms. Yes, enforcement, but reforms. Is the secretary correct that rhetoric has an impact? Without a doubt. And is what happened today outrageous and unacceptable? Yes. But we cannot hold Democrats to one standard and then say, not just a Republican, but the highest ranking elected official in the country, it's okay for him to say hateful, incendiary things, and he is not held accountable. And also, people having concerns about ICE, there were just 2 individuals killed by ICE agents, and every day we're learning more about one of those ICE agents. I'm talking. One of those ICE agents having a history of domestic violence and perhaps even traumatic brain injury. So there are real legitimate concerns. 100%. But overall, it's not just the left and it's not just the right. Everybody needs to take rhetoric down.
Okay, you said that the Democrats are in favor of reforming the INS. Why didn't they do it? They ran the place when Joe Biden was president, and millions of illegal immigrants came into the country, and they did nothing about that. That's not reforming the INS. That's just saying anybody can come into the country.
What I said was the letter today.
Yeah, but why didn't they do it when they had the power to do it?
The letter today is about reforming ICE and their functions. And 38 senators signed that today in the present, because in the present we have real problems.
The reason people didn't complain about ICE during Biden, because the ICE didn't do anything under Joe Biden. They let illegal immigrants come into the country.
The reason why Democrats did not do anything about that is because your president, Donald Trump, told them not to. They had a bipartisan immigration bill, and Donald Trump called up the United States senators and said, do not pass that bill.
No, I'm talking about the law. The law was the law.
I'm talking about immigration enforcement. You said, why didn't Democrats do something about all the immigrants coming in? They tried to do something, and Donald Trump said, don't do it. As far as reforming or limiting ICE, Democrats are taking action right now. They're sending a letter. First of all, not that that's enough.
Why didn't they just stop the illegal immigration?
But 10 people have been killed by ICE since this year.
A lot of people have been killed by illegal immigrants
in the past year. Since Donald Trump took office. That didn't happen under Biden's administration.
So let me make sure I understand. This deranged anti-ICE leftist tries to blow up the federal office in New York today, and that's Donald Trump's fault. Joe Biden.
Nobody said that.
You just gave a long speech about it.
Never said that. You didn't listen to a word I said, did you?
No one said that.
Joe Biden doesn't enforce immigration laws. And that's Donald Trump's fault. I'm trying to identify the end of the Choose Your Own Adventure book where it doesn't end with it's Donald Trump's fault. Stephen is right. They did not enforce the law. And you know who will tell you that? Anybody that works for ICE today will tell you when they were working there under Biden, they were told not to enforce immigration law. We haven't passed any new laws. And today, we had the 14th straight month of no releases at the border. The border is closed. Not a single new law was passed. The only difference is the feds are enforcing long-standing existing law, And you have Democrats now demonizing the people enforcing it, and you have people like this lunatic showing up trying to blow up the federal building.
Nobody's
That's what's
supporting
happening.
this guy who did the firebombing at the federal building today. So let's get that clear. What we are saying is that if you're going to condemn political violence, at least be consistent, because the
Right.
top purveyor of political violence in our
a fair
country
point.
is Donald Trump.
Let me just, you mentioned something, Christine.
As it turns out, Keith Boykin does believe the guy who set the building on fire is in the wrong, and yet he still wants to blame Trump for it, which is astounding. Now, let me be straight with you because we don't fabricate on this channel. Keith Boykin says Donald Trump implicitly encouraged violence, and here's the actual status of that. The House impeached him for it. The Senate acquitted him 57 to 43, and they needed 67. The Justice Department indicted him on other counts, and that case was actually dropped. So no court has ever ruled on it. Keith Boykin is giving you his read, which is fine. He's allowed to do that. It's just that it's not a finding, and nobody at the table said so. So I'm saying it for you. That's it for tonight. There's no ads here, no sponsor. It's just me, you, and the clip. Now, please let me know down below. Do you trust the condemnation by Keith Boykin, or do you follow the numbers? Was Sarah Sidner fair to press Scott Jennings on whether ICE brought this on itself? And did she aim it at the wrong man? And do you buy the story that Donald Trump is the reason a man walked up to 26 Federal Plaza on Monday morning? Drop your answers below, and may I suggest to you that you share this clip with one friend who would thank you for sending it. Subscribe if you're new, and there will be a tip jar link down below if you want to support the channel. There's no pressure. Hats off to Scott Jennings and Elizabeth Pipko. Newsnight with Abby Phillip, CNN. Appreciate you guys. God bless.